you could be here because today we're talking about the future. We're actually talking about AI. We're also talking about machine learning. We're talking about how you can tap into the use them effectively. Look, I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but like if you're not figuring this out now, and probably within the next year or so, you're going to be left in the dust by your competitors because there's some really cool things you can do with AI and with machine learning if you know what to do and how to do it. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. So over the last 15 years, Luke Arrigon has worked with some of the top brands in the United States, building machine learning and data science programs, even before there was such a term. He worked with companies such as UPS, J&J, Getty, AT&T, Stryker, Goldman Sachs, CAA, Fox, Sephora, amongst many others. Luke has media experience explaining to the audiences at Bloomberg, Wired, and others on topics such as data's impact on politics, machine learning, blockchain, and other ways that tech intersects in a big way in everyone's day-to-day life. And he built and sold an econometrics business in the past, and also his experience with Sino-American trading relationships. He worked with several companies such as Johnson & Johnson and Samsung, making him familiar with how to do business with technology and raise products in China as well. Wow, done a lot of things. Luke, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm really excited you can be here too, because I think this, we both know actually this is the future. And yeah, I'm still shocked at how little entrepreneurs know about this. So let's talk about it. First of all, I think artificial intelligence is oftentimes referred to as things that are not artificial intelligence. So let's start there. Like from your perspective as the guru, like when we talk about AI, like what really in general is artificial intelligence?
So there's like a taxonomy to this, right? And at the very top of this umbrella is just the term AI. And then everything underneath it gets, pretty useless to pretty useful, depending on what you're talking about. Like if I made a 1 million, if this, then do that statement about like how to fold a towel or something, technically that's AI, but it's useless. Who cares? That's meaningless. When most people talk about AI, they're talking about machine learning, which is a subset of AI. And then there's even greater subset of that called supervised learning, which is, hey, I have a ton of data. Inside the data is answers. And I want to take data that doesn't have the answers and predict that answer. So for example, I want to know how much this house that's on the market is worth. Well, we'll look at the MLS and see how much all these houses sold for. And then we'll know how much this house might sell for if we put it on the market. And so typically when we say AI, we talk about this big useless umbrella. If you talk about machine learning, now you're in the know. Now you're talking about something that everyone is using to really make big gains. So like Tesla, Google, Facebook, they're using machine learning. They're using supervised learning for a lot of their projects.
Okay, so you talk about AI and machine learning being a part of AI. I'm just curious, what other parts of AI are there that are popular or common?
None. All the rest of them are exotic in weird ways. There's reinforcement learning. Like I said, there's literal if-then type checks. There's different kinds of algorithms that might be able to consider it, like, Conway's Game of Life. There's all kinds of bizarre things that we don't really care that fall under this big umbrella. But what everyone that's making money out with AI is doing right now is machine learning, is one part of that umbrella.
So when we jump in and talk about machine learning, give me a deeper dive into like how machine learning works. Like what is machine learning?
All right. So machine learning is, I have a ton of data. So let's say, we track customers across your e-commerce site, right? We know what they click on, how long the mouse stays over the image, if they've zoomed in on the image. Let's say a ton of stuff. We know this customer inside and out. And let's say we leave this thing for 6 months, right? And for 6 months, we're capturing all the little movements and all the things they type into search, what categories they click on. And then we know what they're going to put in their cart, if they'll check out, and how much they'll check out with. Right. So those are the things that most e-commerce operators care about, right? Are they going to put it in my cart? And then are they going to check out with that cart? And are they going to check out with everything? And so what we would do is we'd come back after 6 months, you say, hey, I have all this data. What I really want to do is make predictions so that when someone comes on the site after they've interacted with it a little bit, I already know what to push in front of them. I already know that I can accelerate this. I know that people that were like them also added this other thing to their cart and they was more likely to check out with the whole thing. So let's show a little box with that thing that makes them check out even more. Like, that extra little $5 add-on is like, for some reason, whenever anyone adds that to the cart, they're more likely to buy the whole thing. Let's just put that prominently. Let's put it at the top of the search results or the top. Let's somehow alter their experience so that they're more like the successful cohort that we've been studying. And so when you do this in an automatic way, where it's not a human deciding to put these things, but you have the machine decide, the machine is learning. It's taking that data from the past and it's trying to, influence these decisions in the future.
What are some of the most common uses that you're seeing from an entrepreneurial level? Because obviously military and such, there's so many other uses of this. And that's a great one for e-commerce. I think it's very real for my friends that I know that are in e-commerce. What are some other common uses you're seeing for machine learning right now?
So if you're a huge company, you basically have this treasure trove of data. It's just you prancing through the field of opportunity. But when you're entrepreneurs like us, right? If you're thinking about starting a business right now, or if you've just started a business and you're really thinking like, how does machine learning apply to me? I don't have the treasure trove of data that those enterprise competitors have. What do I do? Really, there's a couple of factors. The first is vendor analysis. Almost all of the vendors now that you buy software from are going to pitch you on AI. You need to be discerning when you talk to them about AI. So you need to ask them, what are you optimizing for? Are you optimizing for precision? Are you optimizing for my revenue over time? Like, explain the ML to me. Kurt Vonnegut had this great quote, which I'm going to slightly butcher around. If a scientist can't describe to a 5-year-old what they do, they're a charlatan. You should take that feeling into your vendor negotiations, into your vendor sales calls, asking them, like, explain to me how the ML works, because that ML could be make it or break it for like your marketing program. If they're saying, hey, we have great machine learning that'll just pick all the best people out, tell them, okay, break it down for me. That is an appropriate thing to do right now. And some people I think are afraid to like get into that call and be like, well, I don't understand it. No, you're the boss. Get in that call. You ask them to explain it to you. So that's the first thing, is be really, really savvy with your vendors around those conversations. Have them explain it. The second is be prepped. When your company does grow, when you do get bigger, you need to make sure that you've been collecting all the right data from the start so that you can really call someone that knows ML, or even a small data science intern, someone that can come up and do this. They have something to work with. I've gotten into clients and, they've been around for a year or two, and then we realized they didn't record anything. They literally dropped everything on the floor and threw it away. And we have clauses where like, you have to actually have data for us to help you. Right. And so what you want to do is avoid that awkward situation. And from the start, make sure you talk to your development teams or your vendors and make sure, one, you can export all the data that comes out if it's a vendor. And two, if it's your own software you're building, make sure that that's being collected in usually a standardized way. So like the columns aren't all over the place. It's not 6 different spreadsheets with different names on 4 different computers. Try and make one cohesive data store. And then from there, you can do some kind of magical stuff. And usually all you need is about 6 months, given, of course, your traffic, right? But usually it's about 6 months worth of data is enough to start a data science program.
So what if I don't know what my outcome is because I don't understand what's possible?
Well, so you would want to record data, record everything. But what you want to do is record everything closest to the thing that you're really studying as an operator, right? And so like everyone, even if everyone's running, if 5 different people are running 5 different e-commerce shops, the reality is they all 5 are probably optimizing for something different. That is just the name of the game. They have these thesis around investment, right? They're like, I really think that if I can get people to click on that pay-per-click, they'll check out. Or if I think I can get my cart size to a certain size, they'll check out. Everyone has a different strategy of how they pull the levers on their business. So you want to think about how your strategy is unique and the lever that you like to pull to get customers, and then get all the data that surrounds it in its immediate proximity, and then the data surrounding that if possible.
Makes perfect sense to me. With that being said, what's the first step? Let's say that this is the interesting thing is, like, as an entrepreneur, we gather so much data. Like in our business, there's so much data we gather. And I'll give you an example. So one of our analytics guy on our analytics team built machine learning to actually determine when somebody's going to default on payments, when somebody's likely to default. They can even really determine almost within a day or 2 days when the person is going to default. And then with that data, like 90% plus accuracy, Then we were able to reach out to those people preemptively and say, hey, like, offer them something cool with financing and lower the payments. And it's worked like killer for us. But I can tell you as a CEO, I never would have thought of that, man. Never, even in my wildest dreams, I would have thought of that, right? Because I don't know that capability exists. So even though I'm really good at gathering data as an entrepreneur, I don't know what exists. So I don't know what to put out there as the goal to say, hey, can you help with this problem? As a matter of fact, when I think about retention problem, I wouldn't even think about machine learning, right? That wouldn't even pop in my head. Like I'm trying to solve that problem a bunch of antiquated ways. So I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is like, how can entrepreneurs really tap into the potential of this to get a better understanding of what it could do in their organization?
So this is a great example you gave, because it sounds like you actually collected a lot of the data, or at least you kept it in a standardized way of when people defaulted, right? Like that wasn't something your email guy said, hey, let's start recording now. And you came back in 6 months. It sounds like there was some system you had, whether it's something you collected or your vendors collected, you could export, that actually was able to track these people all the way up to a default. So in some way you did the thing that I've been kind of recommending, right? Like you collected that. But I get what you're saying too, which is like, but you never even thought I can build this ML program around it, but you still collected the data. There is a little bit of, I want to call it art into machine learning, which is it's hard to know necessarily what you can do. And this is something that is just, it's a nascent industry, and it's hard to give good rules around how you would know what's possible. But collecting data is really important, of course, around your core business. But also, if you want to say what I can do, you really know that you can do predictions around data that you do have, right? You did have when someone defaulted, right? But you probably don't have maybe access to financials beyond what they share with you, right? And so like, let's say that they defaulted on a car payment or something, right? I don't know what the details of your program is, but let's pretend you don't have access to that. You in some way could predict that they would default on some other financial obligations outside of the ones that they have with you. But because you don't actually have that data, that would not be the thing you would want to build a program around, right? Like you don't actually have if they defaulted on their car, even if you have all the data surrounding it, because you didn't have the answer, you wouldn't want to try and build anything like that. So if you kind of rewind it, it's basically, if you have data for the thing that is the answer and the thing that the whole path that leads up to that answer, you could probably build an ML program on it.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, because I do completely understand it now from what you're saying. It's almost like a switch clicks on that. First, step one, you got to start collecting data. Like if you're not collecting massive amounts of data right now, you're crazy. As a matter of fact, your enterprise value of your company increases radically just because you have that data. I mean, people want to buy you and invest in you just because you have that data that they can use for other sections that they may, or other industries or sections. But so that's a first step. You got to get the data. Once you get the data, then you have to kind of think about, hey, how could you use this? In a perfect world, what could you use this for? What could you predict? What would you like to have happen? And then from there, get with somebody smart like you and say, hey, like I got this data and I'd like it to do this. Can an ML be created to do that? Is that really the best path to go through?
Yeah, I mean, you just outlined it perfectly. Yeah.
Is AI going to kill us? I'm just kidding. No, you know what I'm saying?
It's so funny though. No, that's
Elon's
great,
my man, and he's like talking
we
to Congressman like AI is going to kill us. But to me, I don't think we can progress as a society without ML. I don't even see how we can advance. I mean, that's the next logical step. But then there seems to be this huge fear from some out there, pretty smart guys like Elon's my man, right? I love that guy. But I mean, like, how do we walk this delicate balance where we can program machines to do this work that we want them to? But is it really a threat? Like, give me some insight there.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So when we talk about machine learning and like we talk about predicting that, like the defaults, right? Machine learning does one thing. It predicts one thing. I mean, we can get nuanced and say that it, of course, can make a couple of predictions, but not really. When you build a model, there's one output that comes out of that output. You're not getting this thing of like sentience, where something is, stringing 8 different solutions together and then deciding on all these solutions that this is the best possible outcome. So let's talk about Tesla. There's like 24 different, we call them neural nets or models or machine learning type models inside of it. So there's like 24, maybe now it's grown, maybe it's 50 different types of models. That means there's doing like 50 different predictions, right? It could be more, it could be less. I don't really know. But the reality is it's granular. Each one says, is this a stop sign? And then there's another one, should I stop at the stop sign? Right. And then there's another one, is this a red light? And then one is, should I stop at the red light? Right. Like there's these whole matrix around one tiny decision at a time. And all of them are disjointed and just tied together with software. And so we don't want to think about AI as like this really smart brain. It's really a single use tool that they do. If you stack enough together, it does something more complex. And so you can't really get a sentient killer from that, right? Like that's not, you can't just do that. You would have to build a thing that is deliberately sentient. And the reality is, we hear Elon talk about how AI is going to like, enslave us and stuff, but I own a Tesla and it still tries to run itself into the median. I would think that if Elon is going to warn all of us about how bad AI is going to kill all of us, I would just love for him to make good and make my X drive itself. Right. And this is, I'm just poking fun at him, but the reality is the people that are shouting out there about how AI is going to rule things, they often don't even have the capabilities to do things that are practical today. We haven't even crossed the threshold of what we need to do today. So at some point, AI is going to be really amazing. But right now, we have no fears. Right now, if you're an entrepreneur, you should lean into it heavy. Don't worry about the AI taking over the world. That is not happening anytime soon. Distant fear.
So tell me a little bit about sentience, because I might be completely out and not know, but I never even seen this word used before, I think, until today when I read it in a news article where a Google engineer believed he'd accomplished sentience in something and he got fired for publishing it. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but then other people looked at it and said, the guy's crazy. Like that's not sentience at all.
Yeah.
So what is sentience? And like, give me some insight here.
So this is more philosophical than it is computer science, right? Because you have to think about, well, what makes us human, right? And what makes someone machine. And you have to think about, well, truly, I'm maybe a whole complex system of one-off things that are firing at a time, right? To say that I am sentient is to say that at some point, these little single functions I do as a human add up to something greater, that the sum is greater, or the whole is greater than the sum of all parts, right? I haven't read that paper, but I'm guessing that that's probably crazy too. I'm going to go ahead and just fall into the camp. I know that's a blind read. I should probably read it ahead of time, but the reality is we're just too far away from that tech. If we want to say that a computer or a system we build is sentient, it would need to have a completely different architecture from what we do today in machine learning. We're talking, we would need multiple foundational steps. For instance, imagine someone coming out tomorrow and saying, I invented the computer, but there was no electricity that had been invented yet. Like we've missed steps, right? Like we first need to invent electricity. Like we don't know any computers that run without that, right? And then we need to run, like there's a whole copper and silicon industry that needs to be built, right? Like there's multiple steps that have to happen before someone can invent a computer.
Yeah.
And that's what I hear. When I hear someone say, oh, I invented sentience with AI, I think we haven't even invented electricity yet. Right now, we are poking around with a kite in the sky with a string.
I love how you put that too, because it makes a ton of sense. Like we see that with this move to solar, where now these guys are like desperate for the ingredients of what makes these batteries, right? So now all of a sudden they're trying to find solutions to be able to even figure that part out. Because like if everybody moves to batteries and solar, like I don't even think we have the ingredients here, right? So now they're mining asteroids. Like, I mean, this is real world. It's hard to even believe this is the world we live in.
Blue Origin, that's their whole thesis.
It makes sense, right? Yeah. I don't even know if we have enough ingredients. If we went completely solar today, I don't even know if we have the ingredients on the planet to be able to create what would be needed for the batteries. Don't know, not a scientist, right? But and then we got to go out and get it elsewhere. So like you said, there's so many steps before we could even get to that level. And that's just a simple example of like,
I mean, your example is spot on, right? Like someone would probably need to invent something better than the lithium battery, right? Something that's like orders of magnitude more efficient. And that's hard to even think about. If someone said, hey, I have this thing, we're going to power the whole world with electricity, no fossil fuels, like that's fantastic. But you first forgot to invent the thing that can store it. So it is exactly as you describe it. I know that there are foundational steps that are lead between here and there, and you just can't skip them.
So if we're talking about outside of business, daily lives, where are some of the cool things you're really seeing machine learning doing that's really giving us huge advancements of just how we live our normal average day-to-day life?
So the assistants we have on our phones, and of course, like Google Homes and Alexas and stuff, there's an enormous opportunity there because they are basically something that's listening in, or they have the potential to listen in, and be able to offer us guidance. And I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. I think that if we had some type of device that could listen to our conversation and say, hey, you talked to Bill and Bill's pretty stressed, that would be neat. If we can actually do that kind of sentiment analysis on voice, right? Imagine at the end of the day being able to go through an app and be able to see like, hey, like these are the way that people are speaking to me and I'm speaking to them to help me have a better kind of understanding of my social life. I think as we moved away from tribal life, right, we're moving into more, larger social circles. Like most people have like 800 friends on their Facebook. I use friends very loosely on that, but you know what I mean? Like we have these enormous social circles. How do you keep everyone in track, right? How do you keep yourself understanding it? Because really our brains are meant to be like 50 people or less. And that wasn't that long ago for us, evolutionary speaking. Anthropologically, we just walked out of the cave and suddenly we went from something we're very, very used to with 50 people or less to, I mean, you and I will probably connect in a couple of months just to say what's up, right? It'd be cool if I could track that over many years. Say, hey, he's more excited about X topic than he was last time you chatted. I think the opportunity for us to become better social creatures, ironically, through technology, is going to be something we see in the next few years.
It's cool. And I like that you pointed that out. I mean, I think we've got like 76,000 generations here, just as hunter gatherers, and yet we're 2,000 years, into this whole thing. And look at how far we've come. It's just kind of crazy, the advancements. What do you think? What's the stuff that recently you're seeing that maybe a lot of people don't know is out in the AI or machine learning world that excites you? And I don't know if this is an example or not, but man, I saw a really cool thing the other day with those Google glasses where they put in Google Translate. It was ridiculous, man. You got like somebody that's in a family and one speaks English, one speaks Spanish, and they put those glasses on, and the Spanish speaking person like is translating to the person that speaks English. I've never seen anything like it before. I just thought it was the coolest thing and how that solves a really big problem. Don't know if it's an example or not, but what kind of cool stuff that we don't know about that we're not seeing is out there right now?
I think the tech is not computers that I'm really excited about. Like we have like some cool stuff that the different countries and labs are doing, like with quantum entanglement, right? Like this thing that's just was this distant science fiction thinking can be used now to maybe transmit information over very far distances immediately. Things like even the mRNA vaccines. Like that was something like Moderna sat on that for almost a decade with DARPA, right? And then, they got called up to the ship and like, hey, you need to deliver on this. And they did. It was fantastic. But like that's tech that's actually been around for a long time that was just like risky and no one really knew what to do with it. And it was proven to be extremely effective through emergency means with COVID, right? But mRNA and the idea that we can do like CRISPR and mRNA are two different things. I hope no one thinks they're the same, but I'm talking about like biomedical advancements and like hard sciences, like really hard sciences. Those two fields are incredibly fascinating. I think the next big tech thing that comes out isn't really going to be AI or anything else. It's going to be basically we solved cancer because there's something that crawls through your body and kills it. Like something like completely unimaginable, because that's where both of those industries are at right now. Us pushing the boundaries of the fabric of space and time, and us pushing the boundaries of our own biology. So I'm really excited to see over the next 10 or 20 years how our world looks so different because of those things.
And I have an interest in both of us. I think it's interesting. I just read Tony Robbins' book, and I say that because he does the intro and the outro, and then it's all written by somebody that knows the topic, called Life Force. I don't know if you've read that. It's phenomenal. It's like insane.
Not. Should I? I'm going to add it to the list.
If you have an interest in what you're talking about, it's really worth it because it talks about all these advancements of biomedical that I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like there's so much stuff out there right now that's happening that most of us as lay people, we don't know because our FDA, we got to go through this massive process to ever get anything rolled out. And the results of some of it's just astonishing of what's happening. And, to create the longevity, to fix things like cancer, to be able to, to be able to give you a very early indicator of cancer, of heart disease. I mean, well before, where it's such early stage that you could immediately do something. It's like, it's astonishing that what's happening right now in those areas.
Yeah, no, I'll look that up. That sounds like that's right up my alley.
Back down to a lower level, though, you mentioned social. Is anything happening with social media platforms right now with AI and machine learning that you're seeing?
No, I think social media is needing to reform itself. I think they're coming under a lot of legislative pressures, and I think rightfully so. I think the discourse in the country is largely broken because of the way that social media kind of feeds people what they want to hear, right? So it doesn't matter what side of the bubble you're on. If you're far left or far right, you tend to get whatever you want to see. And I'm not identifying with either side of the spectrum. I'm identifying with the problem that is probably not healthy for us. We should have healthy discourse. We shouldn't have media that pushes people to farther and farther extremes just to sell you pet food ads, right? Like, that's ridiculous. Like, the cost benefit isn't there. If somehow this system like hyper educated people or made people incredibly healthy, or like there was some huge societal benefit to Facebook, I'd be like, you know what, maybe we'll live with that one little tiny quirk that we're like, it's harder to talk to families at Thanksgiving. But we don't even have that. Like, I mean, what's the advance? Sending a picture, right? Like, that's old hat. That's kind of done with. Do I really need Instagram anymore? Right? Like, I enjoy Instagram. I enjoy like TikTok and Reels. Like, nothing wrong with any of that. But at the same time, have being fed that kind of sucks. And like, for you and content creators, wouldn't it be great for you to be promoted to an audience that maybe isn't exactly your demo, but maybe to the left or to the right of it? That would be cool, because they'll hear it and be like, this is central content. I need this, right? I don't need my bubble. I need this guy. He's talking real sense here. But content creators are always going to be pigeonholed. So it'll be hard for content creators to even talk outside of that their norm, because they're not going to get fed to their base. So things like that, I think, are, they're problematic for us.
So let's say that I'm interested in a machine learning. I know it can do some things, not exactly sure what it can do. Is there a place I can go, people I can talk to, your company, your website? I don't even know if there's others out there where I can just start to get a better understanding of what other people are doing with it. So then that can kind of trigger things of, oh my gosh, I never thought of that. This could work perfect for me and my business.
Yeah, it may be a shameless plug. If you go to aricor.com, ARRICOR.com, there's like a whole bunch of stuff we've done for different industries. So it might inspire like, hey, this is what I could do too. Obviously, go ahead, reach out to me if anyone wants to have a conversation. But there's really good use cases of how we've used it practically. So not AI that's like, hey, we've done this weird thing on Mars that, helps the rover land. You're like, cool, Luke, but that doesn't help me. Instead, there's real practical stuff that industries and companies that we all use and heard of, how they practically use AI.
And I think that's the thing, is most people are, what's in it for me. So that being said, like, what's your process? If I come to you to try to figure out what you guys can do to help, like, give me a quick overview of like, what is your
our process is simple. We come in, we do discovery. So we look at what your problems are. We ask you questions like, what's your biggest problem with business? Not with your data, not with your IT. That's someone else's job, right? But if you're like, you know what, I just really need to get conversion up, or I really need people to check out, or I really need to capture defaults right before they happen, we will start there. Do we have the data? How do we build it? And then during the process of having this focused goal, we can see what's possible. So we'll come back to the client. We'll say, hey, I know you want us to solve this problem, but we also saw this other thing. Would you like this to be explored as well? And oftentimes they say yes. Then from there, we build a prototype, either of the original or that side thing, or both. And then from the prototype, we have goals like, yes, it met the metrics. It's this % accurate. This is something we can use. It's better than humans. And then from there, the final stage is productionalizing it. Let's make the whole big thing so it's automated. You could set it, forget it. The idea is like, if my team all gets hit by a bus, right? Like, you should still have something, right? And so that's the last stage. It usually takes maybe 6 months or so per project.
Is AirCore play off your last name?
It is, yeah. It's so funny. So much of my business is like some VP at some large company called another VP, and it's like, oh yeah, just call Luke. And so I had to incorporate, I don't know, a decade ago or so, and I'm like, whatever, not a big deal. I'll do the boring thing, just do my last name. And now, like, my company is, it's a little bit more well known. We made like Forbes last year, and I kind of have the world's most boring company name, but it was like a shell. Like I'm not going to run into my personal, right? I need to have a core.
I actually like the name.
It was just like the funniest thing. And just like, it's like the Walmart story, except I'm not as rich as him. It was just like, whatever, let me get like, what's the cheapest possible way to get my corporation up? So, because no one cared about my name. They just wanted my team.
That's awesome. Yeah. Luke, where can everybody go, where everybody should go to learn more?
They could reach me on my site, or, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very responsive on LinkedIn if you just want to go there as well.
Okay. Thanks for coming on with us today.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
All right. So listen, if you're watching and listening to this is the future. And like I said, you're about to be left in the dust. And I don't mean that as an exaggeration or dramatic. Like I said, when companies like us are figuring out basic things like how to predict when people default and then save them before they do, when you've got companies out there, like Luke said, that are figuring out that if they add one thing to the cart, that it dramatically increases the actual percentage or probability that they will check out. This is what your competitors are doing right now. And so if you're not in that, you are way behind the 8 ball and you will get left in the dust. So if you want to learn more, then all you have to do is go to ericor.com. If you go to ericor.com, there's just a lot of great information here. Luke's got a great blog with tons of information. You can get in touch with him and talk to him, talk to his team. You can also get details about their exact process, amongst many other things. So make sure you check out ericor.com. I'm also going to put, and by the way, that's ARRICOR. Excuse me, I'm going to say that slower. ARRICOR. So it's ARRICOR, Ericor. If you go to ericor.com, and I'm also going to go ahead and put a link to Luke's LinkedIn on the show resources page right now. Check this out, because if not, like, you've got serious problems. Like, this is the future. So be able to get ahead of your competition, and you're just going to maximize everything in your business. Your ad spend is going to be monetized. Your ability to convert customers, to retain customers, all the things that are important to a healthy bottom line all happen using this kind of machine learning. So go to ericor.com to check it out right now. And I appreciate you coming to the show today. Thanks for tuning in.